There's so many behind-the-scenes stories, none of which I can tell you. No.
Boom, bang, watch, shang-a-lang, my baby don't wanna stop. Boom, bang, shoot, shang-a-lang, crazy for rock and roll.
Well, you know, a bunch of young guys in a Holiday Inn in Baltimore. I mean, we were all, you know, constantly in a sexual frenzy.
Because I was in Diner, I was the lead in Raiders of the Lost Ark. I mean, I was close, but actually, I passed on it.
I know that there were a couple of actors who were desperate to have sex with extras.
In this one little movie, I experienced like the ups and downs of the whole business. In that case, it was the down and then the up.
I can't tell too many carousing stories. Because you got kids, you know, you got people's kids watching these things. It's just so I go, this is what your dad did. You want to know what your dad did? Let me just tell you something that's really funny.
It was really the beginning of a whole range of characters that I played with the names of Jewish food.
The concept of banter was mine, years ago, in the 1740s. Men would sit around, they weren't talking, and I was the first guy that said, come on, come on, come on, come on. I got the banter going.
Boom, bang, shoot, shang-a-lang, crazy for rock and roll.
The Sunday before we started shooting, you know, the first Monday, and we were staying at the Holiday Inn in downtown Baltimore, and all of a sudden, all the trucks were pulling in, you know, all the trucks do you need for, you know, a movie. They were all pulling in, and suddenly you see all these trucks, you know, in the parking lot, and you go, holy God. I mean, somehow, like, that was tangible, because the film is like, well, there's film, there's the cans of it, you know, there's a camera, whatever, but suddenly trucks, like an army has descended on Baltimore, you know, to do this little film. And then there's a little moment of like, oh gosh, this is for real, you know? There are trucks with drivers, and somehow I remember seeing that for a moment, and you get a little flutter of like, oh gosh, this is for real, and here we go.
Barry was directing for the very first time, and you know, it was interesting because he hadn't really honed his skills, I don't think, yet, as in terms of talking to actors. You know, he'd come up, you know, after a take, and he'd kind of say, yeah, you know, when you do the thing that you do, when you're doing that thing, just do the thing.
I'll never forget the first day of shooting. Barry was very nervous, and it was me and Guttenberg, and we were in this pool hall, and I was terrified because I didn't know from film. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how to do it. We got to the first shot of the day. All the stuff went on. The clapper clapped the thing, said, okay, rolling, you know, scene 46, take one, mark it, speed, and we waited. And you could hear a pin drop, and very quietly, the first assistant director leaned over to Barry and said, you have to say action. And he said, action! Like that, really loud, and everyone just fell apart.
You know, at the end of a scene, he didn't say cut sometimes, he just let us talk. Now, sometimes it was an accident, I remember. I think the first take, he forgot to say cut.
I like to give as little apparent direction as possible. Sometimes you do it without saying, would you do, and et cetera, but somehow just in talking about things that may not even be what appears to be specific to the moment, somehow is where I want them to go.
He was the most confident director you could imagine, especially considering that none of us had any idea of what we were doing.
And we'd start to work through this script, and all of a sudden, I realized that he was, as a director, opening up the floodgates for improv.
I try to find a way what you might call like sort of controlled freedom, that it seems to be very loose and it's very open, but you know, I know where I want it to go, and I see where I think it will go if certain little, very sleight of hand will help.
He was just really attentive, and he would listen, and something struck him funny, he would say, do that again. And I don't think he even told us to improvise.
When you put a group of men together, there's going to be competition. And when you ask people to improvise, and you got a guy like Paul Reiser around, everyone else is going to lose at the improvising competition because the guy is the sharpest, fastest guy alive.
Excuse me, Earl. Does that include the fried chicken dinner?
Yes.
It does. Uh-huh. Also,
22 deluxe sandwiches and the fried chicken dinner.
it's not human. He's not a person. He's like a building with feet. You know what I mean? It's unbelievable.
We did some great improvisation, and the lines themselves, all the written work was just brilliant.
I mean, we did that for all that time, and Barry was sort of guiding the conversations this way or guiding them that way, or say, yeah, do that part again, but you know, do it however you want to, and manipulating this group dynamic.
You create a situation or an atmosphere that's loose enough that if you did the dialogue, you did the dialogue, and if you went off the dialogue, then you went off the dialogue and whatever happened. So, or if you'd finished the scene and you're still talking, you know, you're still in the character, what else are they going to talk about? If the scene ended over here and we didn't say cut, what would they say next?
Once he empowers me as an actor with the idea that I'm bringing something to the table to see what I want to do with it, it makes me kind of excited and want to take the ball, you know, to the goal line for him creatively.
I doubt that anybody recognized at the time that everybody in this movie pretty much was going to go on to have a terrific career. I think what that shows is how brilliant Barry is. You know, he cast the movie perfectly.
As I remember, I think Ellen Barkin may have been one of the only people I saw for the role of Beth. She came in, I met her, and I thought she was perfect, and that was it.
I don't have any sense of myself anymore. I don't know what I am. I don't know if I'm pretty or...
I had an instant rapport with Barry. I don't know why. I mean, maybe it was two kind of urban Jews just sitting around and talking.
I met Barry at an audition for Diner in New York. I was a struggling actor in New York. I knew the diner. It was the Hilltop Diner in Northwest Baltimore. I knew it very well. So I'm sitting, and I haven't said anything yet. And I say, "Oh no, Barry, I don't believe this." Now, that's a Baltimore accent. I had been to drama school, and I had knocked my Baltimore accent out of myself. But I kind of pulled it back for this. He almost fell on the floor when he heard me say that and gave me the part, which was nice. It was not for my acting, it was just for my accent.
No, they like that.
They like it a lot?
Yeah, they like it.
A friend of mine who was very different look and very sort of parochial, schooly looking, clean-cut guy went in for an audition, and we were going somewhere afterwards, and I literally was just hanging out in the lobby waiting for him, and he went in, dropped off his picture, and the casting director said, "Come on in," and I said, "No." And I actually tried to not get involved. I said, "I'm waiting for my friend, please." And she said, "Do you have a picture?" I said, "I'm not here, but I have it home, but I'm not even." So she said, "Come on back the next day," and I met Barry, and somehow, like 2 weeks later, was in Baltimore going, "I don't know why. I don't know what this is about. It's a mistake."
I was so freaking sick. I had like 103 fever. I had the flu and a cold, and I was an absolute mess for the screen test. And I sort of said to myself, well, maybe I can use that, you know? Maybe that's... I had always had this idea that he would be drunk for the whole movie, that there's like no scene that Fenwick's not kind of half in the bag for. So I used the flu and the kind of glazed over eyes and the voice and stuff like that, and I sort of, you know, was sick, and I just kind of played it like I was, you know, I've been sick, drunk, what's the difference, right? So it worked, and that was really like where I started with for the character.
I went on these auditions for Diner, and it was right on Wilshire Boulevard, and I met Barry. And I remember I was going out with a girl in New York, and I told him all about this girl. And that was basically most of my audition.
I had just started taking an acting class, and I was like really desperate to show all this deep stuff I could do, because I thought, well, you know, if I don't do that, I'm just going to sound like some guy sitting around having coffee. And Barry goes, "No, but that's what we're kind of looking for in this movie, is guys who are sitting around having a cup of coffee." I went, "Oh."
What happened?
All I did was I parked the car on a nice lonely road. I looked at her, I said, fuck her fight.
Hey, that's a good line. I'm gonna use that myself sometime. You always know exactly what to say. I love that.
One of the things about good casting is that if you cast the right group of actors, they will bring so much.
And somehow the combination becomes right. And it's not like this is the best actor and put him in it, because a lot of times you'll see an actor say the actor's very good, but not necessarily in this kind of grouping. When they have to deal with various characters, you want certain elements to happen.
It was all a big mix of our real personalities, so a very strong group of people.
We were all sort of in the same boat, I mean, we were all just a bunch of guys who were starting out.
I think it was a very honest, kind of complete collaboration.
It was a non-judgmental cast.
We went down to Baltimore a week early to rehearse, and we kept expecting to rehearse, and nothing happened. And it was Barry's plan just to kind of stick us in Baltimore, which at the time was a real dump. We were staying in this crappy Holiday Inn, and just stuck us there together. So we hung around saying, what are we supposed to do? What are we doing?
And then he sat down and started rehearsing with all of us, and it was that on a bed in the Holiday Inn is where basically we all met.
They just kind of brought us down so that we would all start hanging out together and, going to strip clubs and share things and start to feel like a bunch of guys that knew each other.
Somehow it gets in there. It gets into the scenes in some way, You want them to be irritated with one another and exasperated and have the ability to laugh and do all that. And it's very delicate. Otherwise, what you end up with is just sort of a piece of work that's like, you say something, I say something, you say something, I say something, all right.
What was great about it, and which was a great education, was being together is often a really good thing for actors and creative, to everybody sort of be together as much as you can.
And he very wisely shot all the diner sequences at the end, so we had this time to bond.
We were all very friendly, and there was a great sense of camaraderie, and there were little spats, it was very familial.
Hey! You guys are too much. How'd you know I was coming in this morning? Hey, we know, man. We know everything. Hey, you're from some diner. Hey, what do you think?
I guess
I'll get some coffee.
Barry and Mark Johnson were perceiving that our camaraderie was starting to break down a little. And there were some, I don't know if there were any fist fights, but it got sort of close to that a couple of times, and there were some things going on between some of us that were, starting to get a little bit dicey. And they still had, another couple of weeks or something on the picture to finish. So they went out, and one day we showed up, and here was this thing. It was a camper, nowhere near the size of like the trailers that you have on movies as a dressing room now, but it was kind of like a little a truck, and then there was kind of like a camper stuck on the back of it.
Yeah, the camaraderie camper. Wow. Was that ever cheap?
The camaraderie camper, yes, you had to go. You had no choice. You had to go in a camaraderie camper. Get in there in camaraderie.
But then there were 5 or 6 of us crammed into this thing. And, we were shooting at night, and everyone was tired, and people were trying to sleep, and, it was like a frat house. Who farted, it was just like a mess. But it was supposed to, enhance the feeling of camaraderie and the lifelong friendships that our characters had had. And it worked.
Yeah, God, that was really absurd. It was like a little box, and they threw the hamsters in there and see if, who would emerge.
The absurdity of that actually created a great camaraderie.
We had a good time in there. We had a good time in the camaraderie camper.
Frederick, put the damn sheep down. I want to put the sheep down. Stop screwing around, Frederick. Look, put the sheep down. We'll pick up the 3 wise men and we'll get out of here. No!
I remember when we were shooting nights, they would keep the restaurant open for us, and you just see a lot of angry waitresses. You want a steak at 7 in the morning and 6 beers? Oh, I guess we could do it.
We called it Breakfast Club, and everybody would sit there and have a couple of drinks after work as the sun came up, which to me was like a totally wild, like magical thing.
I remember having Bloody Marys every morning, and just felt so cool.
And there would be all these poor, sleepy travelers, you know, families who were trying to wake up and have breakfast. And we'd be these obnoxious guys, you know, throwing stuff and ordering drinks and being, you know, young men.
I remember one night somebody had a date that didn't go well, and they called down from the bar, and they were very disturbed. And
Ellen was really cool to talk to. I had a bad date, a really lousy date. And I wasn't doing that well, that's right. I was not doing that well at all. I went down to the bar, I have some drinks, and I called Ellen. She came down, she talked to me. She set me straight.
Oh, Carol, seriously, it was an accident, I swear to God.
An accident? Your thing just got into a box of popcorn.
We used to do things like we go to a bar and try to pick up girls, and we were always pretending to be a different kind of character.
Guttenberg and I went to the strip club one night, and I forget, one night we were race car drivers, I remember. We told them we were race car drivers.
Did we go pick up chicks? You know, they may have gone without me. I don't remember a lot of chick picking up, to be honest with you.
I remember one time we came up with this idea that we were this engineering team that was in town, and we were working on this particular problem because there was a rotating restaurant on the top of a building, and we were having problems because the pipes were all getting twisted up. So it was our job to come in and figure out how we were going to solve this problem. And I think these girls actually believed it, which is really amazing.
Okay, I just want to go on record. If Kevin Bacon or any of the other bastards say that the revolving restaurant expert line was theirs, they're lying. It was me. That's who came up with it.
I do that now, by the way. You know, even though I'm happily married and older, I will lie and tell women that I'm engineers, and then.
I think I missed a lot of it. Now I'm hearing about the girls with the spinning restaurant scam. I think I missed a lot of what was going on there. I thought we were just having Bloody Marys. Who knew?
Danny was married, so he was like, you know, he was dead. That was it for him. He sort of, you know, lived vicariously through the rest of us.
It's just we got nothing to talk about. But it's good, it's good.
It's good. It's nice, right? It's nice.
Yeah, it's nice.
Right.
I remember when we were shooting, there were all these guys that kept coming up, you know, constantly, and I couldn't put a face on any of them, but they were all saying, I'm actually, you know, I'm Boogie. Boogie is not like that at all. I'm more like Boogie.
There's a lot of things in it that were sort of situations and, you know, that had happened in some fashion.
Barry sort of laid out that these are based on real characters and stuff, and we made a pathetic stab at saying, so what's the real Shrevey like? He's like, kind of like I wrote him. Okay. You know, it's still going to be me. I mean, it wasn't, it was the essence of the characters, I guess, that Barry was going for, obviously.
I mean, my cousin Eddie did give his fiancée, you know, a football test, you know. I mean, that did happen.
A lot of people thought that the real-life Billy was Barry.
I don't think Barry was in it. Was he?
I'll tell you, it's just recently occurred to me that one of them must have been. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe Billy. I don't know.
I don't think it's a mystery. Can you find Barry under? It was Tim Daly the whole time.
I have no idea who he was. He was the director. He was the guy sitting outside, observing, writing all this stuff, remembering.
Oh, the bad character of Barry was Tim. Of course, we all knew that. And, you know, Tim was the tall, good-looking guy. That was Barry.
The reason I think people thought that Billy was Barry is because you got the sense that Billy was somehow going to get out. He was not going to get stuck in Baltimore and be sort of a 50s guy and hang out at the diner like Bagel for the rest of his life.
maybe none of them. Maybe they were his friends. I don't know. What does he say?
I think there's a little me in everybody. You know, a little bit gets in there, but there's no specifically, you know, my character in a way.
Every city should be as lucky to have a biographer like Barry.
The thing that people forget about the movie is it's found its way into our hearts as a great film. But when it came out, it certainly was not a blockbuster by any stretch of the imagination.
Diner itself really wasn't that well supported by the studio because they were really concerned about its commercial viability.
I mean, the studio wasn't particularly crazy about it. And, you know, they figure, well, you know, as happens a lot of times, they think, look, the movie doesn't cost that much, so let's not spend any real money on it, and it won't be that big a deal.
The studio didn't even want to release it. It was going to be shelved and put away because they didn't think they really had anything worth putting out there.
There was actually this story that Barry always told about afterward when the movie came out, and how executives didn't know what to do with it, and the studio guys. And they said they watched a rough cut or whatever. They watched the screening of it, and they said, look, like that scene in the diner when they're arguing about the sandwich, why doesn't he just give them the sandwich and get on with the story? And Barry said, because there is no story. That is the story. The fact that they're hocking each other for 15 minutes about a sandwich is the story. They went, well, it's certainly not Porky's, we'll tell you that. They were very disappointed it wasn't Porky's.
You gonna finish that?
Yeah, I'm gonna finish it. I paid for it. I'm not gonna give it to you. No.
If you're not gonna finish it, I would eat it. But if you're gonna eat it, you're gonna...
What do you want? Say the words.
No, go ahead. You're gonna eat it. You eat it. That's all right.
Say the words. I want the roast beef sandwich. Say the words, and I'll give you a piece.
Would you guys cut this out? I mean, every time.
Well, if he doesn't talk, he just...
Well, you know what he means, right?
Yeah, I know what he means, but he beats around the bush. He beats around the bush. If he'd say the words, I give him a piece.
If I wanted it, wouldn't I ask you?
Then ask. You know you
just let it go.
You know he wants
You're
it.
annoying as
I'm
hell.
annoying. I'm annoying. I'm trying to eat a meal by myself.
If you want to give him the sandwich, give him the sandwich. If you don't want to give him the sandwich, don't.
I don't
just
want to give him
forget
the...
it. Well, then just eat the sandwich
Then
and shut
don't...
up.
Well, look at his eyes.
I ask one simple question, you get it. You know what your problem is? You don't chew your food. That's why you get so irritable. It lumps. You have, like, roast beef in your heart. It just stays there.
Someone showed the movie to the esteemed film critic Pauline Kael, and she, without a release date on the film, wrote this spectacular review of the movie in The New Yorker.
And so we ended up with a terrific review from Pauline Kael. We had a great review from the Times and all the other newspapers, and we had these fantastic reviews.
They didn't want to release it at all, and I think it was only released out of embarrassment. You know, they thought, how do we have a movie sitting here that Pauline Kael is saying is so great, and we're not releasing it? That makes us look like idiots. Let's throw it out there.
It was pleasing at the time, and unusual, I guess, at the time, to make such a small, intimate movie as a studio kind of movie. To take a chance on filmmakers like that was a great chance, and I hope those chances are taken more often.
Flipside, Heaven on Earth, recorded by the Platters for Mercury Records, color of the label Maroon. Another. I'm sticking with you. I'm sticking with you. Flipside is Ever Loving Fingers, recorded by Jimmy Bowen for Roulette Records, color of the label is orange. All right, Donna.
You can always know when a movie's going to be around for 20 years when people come up to you and say, I know somebody like that character. My brother's like that character. My uncle's like that character. That's when you know you've got something.
I identified so fully with that character. I would have to say that 20 years later, it's still the closest I've ever played to who I am at that time.
I was pretty young to get married. I was 23. The oddity of me being married in my real life was similar to that dynamic in the diner group of being the married guy in that.
The relationships that those guys had in Diner certainly were relationships that I have had and do have, and most men have had or have.
I think it was because Barry was so specific with the characters. He got it real. And when you get something that dead on and that specific, it becomes universal. Everybody knows somebody like that.
It is very specific to time and place, and I think that ultimately can be timeless. I think the more specific you can become, the more timeless. But that's something you never know about.
Joe Blow on the street stopped me. Oh, I loved you in Diner. I love that record scene. That's so much like me. Or my husband's so much like the record scene. That was pure Barry.
I swear to God that every year I will be someplace and someone will come up to me and start quoting from Diner. They'll just start quoting and quoting to me, and I'll be like, what do you say? And then I'll remember it's Diner, so it's really, life imitates art.
Barry told me implicitly that this was really true and this was going to work, the football quiz. And by gosh, he was right. I mean, people love that football quiz. And, you know, it's one of the things that people talk about all the time.
Elisa's mother's on the phone. How's she doing?
The guys think it could go either way.
Either way, okay.
So when people go and go, my uncle did the same thing with, you know, baseball. I got a friend. Well, I know somebody actually made his wife memorize the infield of the New York Mets. Because if she didn't, he couldn't be with her. And she did.
And I have a bunch of friends that we watched it together and always used to be like, we were those guys, you know. And there are people to whom it was a real touchstone, that movie. And I think because of the guy camaraderie was never reflected quite that way. Some of the men-women issues were never tackled in quite that way.
There's not that much of a story, really. What do? We kind of drive around and, you know, maybe he's going to get married and maybe he's not, and, you know, and then it ends up with a wedding. It's really more about the fact that it's a very honest portrayal of a group of people, and it's a portrayal of a group of guys that people just relate to, some kind of real personal level.
I couldn't believe it. There he was, you know. I didn't want to hit him, but I had to.
Oh, definitely you had to. I mean, Willard Broxton.
Who's Willard Broxton?
Should have said something. We would have come over.
Yeah, what am I going to say?
Hey, I got Willard. Boom.
Timmy, who is Willard
I
Broxton?
don't know. I always liked Willard Broxton.
So I was there to show the way a guy like that would handle, you know, being married, and how he wouldn't get it, and how he wouldn't be able to see past himself and take care of anybody else, understand anybody else's needs, especially a woman's needs.
It's that irresponsibility that you want of running around with your buddies and being silly, and yet the fantastic depth of having a family, a wife and children, but then part of your mind is saying, why am I doing this? I should be out there playing. And then when you're out there playing, you go, God, this isn't as fun as I thought. I should be back home with everybody that I really love. And so it was the first inklings of that step into adult manhood, I guess.
It's not just a movie about guys hanging around. It's all based on those fears and those anxieties. So it's laced throughout the piece.
My son not only has seen Diner, he's 17 years old now, but rented it recently without my asking him, and went out. He loves the movie. He absolutely loves the movie. There's something that appeals to a young man about that movie. There's something that directly taps into their psyche, I think.
It was an inspiration and a lesson for me to see that you can make offbeat films, you can do things that sort of fit between the cracks of what people expect, which is certainly something Dinah was. It was neither this nor that. It was something that had precedence, but it was still its own unique flavor.
It's part of the mystery of, you know, whatever the hell, you know, filmmaking is all about in some way, that you make certain choices and you allow your instincts to, you know, to guide you, and you believe in it, and hopefully you'll succeed more than you fail.
I walked into Barry's office one time, and Mark's office, and Mark was lying on his couch, and I'll forget, Mark has a really great smile, and he was smiling ear to ear because he'd just seen the movie. And I came in and I go, well, what? He goes, it's good. And I go, really? He goes, it's really good. And he had this just Cheshire cat grin, and he knew, and he knew.
You're supposed to grab your
Come on. Trace, give me some money. I don't buy it.
Yeah, I want to be up and up.
You always know exactly what to say. I love it.
First you.
Get him now off again. And he do it.
Yes, he's getting in the car!
Keep that down.
Ooh, darling, didn't I keep you satisfied? But you were cheating, seeing someone new, always cheating.
When you want to make out, who do you make out to? Sinatra or Mathis?
That's a stupid question.
Sinatra, all the way.
Mathis, of course.
Well, that's an interesting choice. I think I'd go with Sinatra.
Mathis or Sinatra in terms of, what's the question, who's dead? That's easy.
Oh, Sinatra. Ridiculous. It wasn't even an argument for me. I didn't even know how they got through that scene. No offense.
Honestly, I'd say Mathis. You know, if I had, you know, one record on the desert island kind of thing, I'd have to go with Johnny Mathis.
I would say in my life I've listened to more Sinatra than Mathis. Though Mathis, a fine singer, still singing.
Mathis or Sinatra?
Presley. I gotta go with Mickey on that one. Presley.
Let the man speak. Let the man speak. Speak.
Presley.